Hello, friends. Good evening. It's good to have all of you. It's good to see you. Thank you for joining us in this journey of healing. I'm delighted to have all of you with us today. Thank you for remembering this meeting. And we have a little change in the program. Yesterday, Mariola, who was supposed to be our speaker, informed me that due to some health issues, she will not be able to be with us. So I contacted Laura Parra, who is also going to be our speaker in the month of October. And she very kindly agreed to prepare a topic for today. So we are going to have a different topic, but I think of major importance for each of us. So I want to welcome Laura. Thank you for making the time to for being with us today here.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me and for opening this space. And I think we can start with our topic for today.
Sure. Let me give you, friends, a little just before Laura, before you go into the topic, let me give you a little information about her. Laura is originally from Colombia. She became a psychologist studying there in her native country. Then she attended Loma Linda University here in California to complete her master's degree in marriage and family therapy. Laura has a heart for service and has been involved in different community and missionary projects in different countries. She has training and experience in working with trauma, grief, family issues, child behavioral issues, military members, and victims of war. So some heavy topics, as we can see: trauma, grieving, military members, victims of war. So Laura, even though she's young, she brings a lot of experience. She has 2 degrees in mental health. And the topic we're going to talk today is self-worth and attachment. And as I have discussed a little bit with her, it's just amazing, Laura, how things that may have happened to us in the past, how it affects the way we relate to others. But I don't want to take much time. I know that you have plenty of information. So the time is yours. And again, friends, let me give you a phone number if you want to send text, either via WhatsApp or via text. It will be 909-658-5225. Again, the number is 909-658-5225. And so after Laura's presentation, we'll have the opportunity to share the questions with her. So Laura, thank you again for being with us, and the time is yours.
Thank you, Gerardo. Well, thank you everyone for being here and welcome. The title for today is, Do You Feel Worthy? Nowadays, we hear a lot about self-empowerment and self-worth and self-esteem and how important that is. And sometimes it may be too much to the point that we don't think it's genuine. But it's something very deep, and it's something that we want to go more into and explore. So starting a little bit with theories and ways in which people base their understandings and their practices about self-worth and human needs. There is a very famous pyramid, which is called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And it says for nurses, but it was in general for humans. And what he said long time ago was that in this pyramid, what is more important for us is the first one, right? This one that is in the bottom, which is the physiological needs. He says, if we have those, we can survive. We're good. As long as we have those, we can move on in life. And so then after, those basic ones, which was breathing, food, water, sex, sleep, homeostasis, and excretion, if we had those, we're good. Now, after that, we can add a little bit more, which are also important for the men's realization in life. And so then it starts with employment, security, family, health, property. So those things that can be more material, not biological, but more material. And then it goes into family, friends, sexual intimacy, and then self, the esteem goes after that, confidence, achievement, self-esteem, respect of and by others. And then after that, we have this self-actualization, which is creativity, morality, spontaneity, and all these other things that we can add to, which are just like the cherry on top. Later on, he added another point, a sixth point, which was the spiritual dimension, which if we have achieved all the ones below, then we can get to that spiritual dimension. And even though, there's some important points about this theory, there are also some issues, because it has been shown that first world countries, which have most of the basic needs, are the ones that have higher divorce rates, are the ones that have higher suicide rates. And those from lower have, like those who have a higher social economical status tend to have higher rates on some of those areas. In the US, the suicide rate is higher on the Caucasian population than the minority communities. And so it brings the question of Maslow's theory of, well, if our basic needs are the foundation for the rest, then why those who have those basic needs are having struggles with the other areas? People who have basic needs, they're still bored, entitled, frustrated, despaired. And also, they're not necessarily looking for that spiritual dimension. Actually, some of those countries that are more developed, they have less spiritual interest. So why are we prioritizing always the basic need? And why do I say why are we? Because in our interaction with people, many times that's what we prioritize. That's a lot of the times why we work. That's what we're in this robot mode where we're just doing things, and we're doing things just to survive. And we just care a lot of the times about the physiological needs, about the basic needs. And many times we ignore the other needs. And it leads us to see the consequences that we see nowadays. Actually, it has also been shown that we are social beings, and we are social beings since the beginning. I work with children from 0 to 9 and older people as well. And at first, parents always ask, why are you going to do therapy for a kid that is a month old? Because we always think it's going to be talk therapy, right? But our focus on that therapy is to help the parent and the child strengthen their bond, their connection. Because research has shown that kids that have experienced neglect and abuse, their development, their interactions, and their life in general has very negative effects. And so research has shown that attachment, that connection, since our very early age, it's very important for our development as human beings. It's part of our basic needs. And so it has shown that we are social beings by nature. We need connection, and connection determines a lot of things for us. And here you guys can see a picture of a brain of a kid that had a normal, a positive relationship with with his or her caregiver. Their brain looks bigger. There's more neural connections in the brain, and this is the size and how the brain of a kid that has been through extreme neglect look like. And now the question to Maslow goes, so do our connection and our interaction affect our biological needs? And the answer is yes. Kids that don't have that connection, that don't have that interaction, have a lot of issues with learning things that are basic and biological. And here we see one of many meanings for attachment, which is a deep and enduring emotional bond between two people in which each seeks closeness and feels more secure when in the presence of the attachment figure. When we have that connection, we're able to feel secure, and that security helps us to explore, help us to grow, and help us to thrive. On the other side, research has shown that kids with neglect, that have experienced neglect, they have more risk for having diabetes, lung functioning, vision, oral health. They also have more issues with their brain development, their social interactions, and their emotional regulation. And even though a lot of these things are very important in our childhood, it's always important to remember that what happens in our childhood places a huge effect on the way how we behave and how we relate in our adulthood. And so it's very important to remind ourselves that what we should be looking for when it comes about healing, when it comes about work, when it comes about life goals, we should think about our connections, our attachment, our childhood, and the injuries that we carry from our childhood. And so, because attachment is so important for us, it has an effect on the way how we end up seeing ourselves and the worth that we find in ourselves. The way how my caregivers showed love and attention to me is going to impact the way how I practice love and how I feel worth it myself. And here we see some meanings for self-esteem, which is some of those words that we hear a lot, which can be identified as what we think, feel, and believe about ourselves. And self-worth, which is the recognition that you are valuable, a valuable human being who is worthy of love. And so if we don't have that healthy connection earlier on, that's going to impact the way how we feel about ourselves, how we think about ourselves, and how we feel that, and what we feel that and think that we deserve, and the choices that we make as well. Unhealthy attachment experiences can also impact, well, like I've mentioned before, our value as humans, but not only our value. And like what we talked before, it's a mutual interaction between our anatomy and our physiological needs with our emotional needs, because it has been shown that unhealthy attachment experiences have an impact on increasing stress, being more angry. And there was a research made with students who constantly, they tried to find their esteem and their worth based on what they would do. Like I have to do this, I have to get good grades, or I have to look a certain way, or I have to have certain things, because when I do that, then people will see me. Then I'm gonna be worth it. And what research showed is that these students, they have lower performance in their school. They have higher risk and levels of drug and alcohol use. They have more eating disorders, more risk for eating disorders, and more emotional dysregulation in general. Whereas on the other side, the kids and the students who found a healthier sense of self-worth, meaning understanding that despite what they did, they still had value themselves. Now, this doesn't mean that we shouldn't aim to grow and to learn and to progress. We should aim into that. But it shouldn't be for us to feel more loved, more seen, more important. If that's what we feel, and I think we all felt it at some point because we're not in a perfect world, then we want to look into those injuries, into those thoughts that we've been carrying from our childhood. On the other side, those students that had a healthier sense of self-worth, such as being a virtuous person, they were found to receive higher grades, and they were less likely to get into drugs and alcohol and develop eating disorders. So what's the point of all this that we are talking about? Recognizing our need of social connection and secure attachment. It is important to not underestimate that need that we have. Many times we prioritize so many biological needs, so many financial needs. But in order for those to thrive and to maintain, it is important that we look into that foundation of connection and love. It is important to remember too the importance of childhood relationships. If you have a child, to understand that those years are the most precious years of that human being. What you do, how you interact with him or her is going to impact them for the rest of their lives. And even though we're not able to go back to our childhood to fix things and to do things different, we can still heal from our childhood injuries. And so it is important for us to also acknowledge and process those injuries that we've been carrying for such a long time. That's a very important part of healing. The way how we connect with others, the way how we attach, impact our relationship with ourselves, the way how I take care of myself, the things that I engage, the decisions I make. And it also impacts the way how I relate to others. Many times when we find ourselves in toxic relationships, it's because they're very familiar relationships to us. We find ourselves repeating some type of things that at some point were hurtful for us. And this, of course, impacts our performance in the world in general and a sense of fulfillment. So to me, this is core for healing. Because from these, we're going to find our motivation for many things in life. Now, what's the issue? That building healthy relationships is not easy. It's not only up to us either. There's other people around us who are also carrying their attachment injuries. And sometimes we hurt each other with our injuries. And so we recognize that it's not easy. And we're all carrying what we learn. But then what do we do with that? If I just stay with that and I just acknowledge it and accept it and I say, you know, this is messed up, there's nothing I can do about it, that's where I'm gonna stay. And it's important to work on it. It's important to not give up on it. Let's identify our needs and let's work on it. Let's attend to our emotional injuries, which they're not new, which we have been carrying since our childhood. And I encourage you, when you are at work and something happened with your coworker, when you're at home and something happened with your kid, with your spouse, with your relative, and something really bothers you, I encourage you to think, how is this related to an experience I had in my childhood? Because many times people may not talk to us the way that other people talked in our childhood, but we may associate it in some way. And so we're really not fighting with the person in front of us. We're fighting with someone else. It is hard to connect, but it's not impossible. When we all identify our needs, we will not be perfect. Like I said, we're not in a perfect world. And I have not met the person who has a fully secure attachment style. They can be closer and they can work on it. So, but we need to connect because that's a need. That's a basic need that we have, as I mentioned it before. So let's work together. Let's include our families and our relationships as part of the progress. Part of the healing is also to forgive. Forgiveness is not easy. And I think eventually there's going to be a talk about forgiveness. But forgiveness is important to connect. And it's important for us to remind, in that process of forgiveness, to remind ourselves that some of the things that other people are doing that are hurtful to me, they're talking more about them than about myself. Some of those things are not necessarily about me or against me intentionally. Are things that they're doing even against themselves, are thoughts that they have about themselves. And so that's a very important step for forgiveness. But as we forgive, part of forgiveness is also to identify our boundaries. Many times we struggle setting boundaries because we think that when we set boundaries, we're going to hurt others. But actually, boundaries help us to hurt others less. Because we explode, we become aggressive when we cannot help it anymore. But if we set our boundaries from the beginning or earlier on, we're not going to get to a point of explosion. And so it is important to forgive, but it's also important and it's healthy to identify and practice our boundaries. And as we talked about self-worth and self-esteem, let's watch our motives. When we make a decision for something that maybe we wear, or something that we say, or something that we do, let's catch ourselves and see, am I doing this because I want to do it, because I want to serve, or because I feel comfortable, because I like it? Or am I doing this looking for the acceptance of, looking to belong somewhere? And again, that's a natural inclination we have. But there has to be something deeper that tells us, even though you want to connect, remember that you're valuable. Remember that you're worthy, despite what you do, despite what you were. And when we understand that, then we have a healthier lifestyle. I saw that there were some topics about nutrition, and there can be other topics about lifestyle and exercise. And it's important for us to practice that, again, not to belong somewhere, but because it's healthy, because it's good, because it's positive. And this is a very important topic that I want to add, because in my practice, it's a question that I always had. If attachment is so important, if knowing that we are valuable, and we know that through our relationship, through our connection with someone else, but there are, and I have seen cases where I'm like, I don't see someone that you can connect that can be healthy. Sometimes it's very difficult. And so I would feel like I'm stuck. Because if attachment is so important for our life and for thriving, and there's no one to connect, then what's left? And I found that spirituality is a very important resource for that. And research has shown that being engaged to a spiritual belief encourages people to have better relationship with themselves, with others, and with the unknown, with the anxiety. Spirituality can help you to deal with stress and give you a sense of peace, purpose, and forgiveness. It often becomes more important in times of emotional stress and illness. But spirituality, it's another source of pain many times. Because spirituality is not only a religion itself, but it's the people there. It's not only the practices and the doctrines and the principles, but it's those who introduce those principles to us. And so many times, and it's very common for us to see God the way how we see some people that in some way represented God or that were connected with Him. And it's painful and it's hard. I cannot fully understand why some stuff happens, but I believe that there's good and evil. And I also believe that we're not in a world where we can control all the evil that happens, sadly. However, despite all the evil, there is a God that says that He still loves us and He still wants to help us. Even though there were things that were difficult and maybe not able to control. And so as we find the importance of spirituality, it's very important for us to practice and to explore spirituality, not necessarily the one that was introduced to us, but the one that we get to discover ourselves personally and differentiate God, who is good, from others that preach about him, but they're not good. When we are able to find that in God, then we are able to find a healthy, secure figure in our lives. A figure that is loving, that is consistent, that is understanding, that is merciful, that is forgiving, but that also is assertive and has boundaries. However, he respects our freedom of choice, and he let us take our own decisions and explore by ourselves. That's the image of God that I have found myself from my personal study, not necessarily from the way how it has been presented to me in the past. And I have found these healthy for me and for other people that are able to restore that image of God and see it from this perspective. And many times when we think about it, we're talking about self-worth. And many times in our spiritual practices, we talk about denying ourselves. So we don't see that there's a connection between service, spirituality, and self-worth. Because we have to deny ourselves, because we have to give the other one our cheek so that they hit us again. That's how many times it is communicated and misinterpreted. But I want us to go to a command that I was able to look at it from a different perspective. In Matthew chapter 22, verse 39 says that the second commandment is to love your neighbor as yourself. And so many times we hear these Bible verse to be used to encourage self-denial, to encourage abuse, to encourage toxic environments, because we have to love others, because we have to serve others. But we forget to really connect the whole meaning of it, especially the last part with the first part. It says, love your neighbor as yourself. Meaning, if you don't find worth in yourself, and if that's the type of love that you have for yourself, which is a worthless love, then what love are you going to give to your neighbor? Because we share what we have. And God wants us to serve, but he wants us to first, like I talked from the beginning, to have that foundation of understanding that even though it's okay for us to serve and he encourages us to serve, it's important for us to first understand our self-worth. And when we struggle finding our self-worth because we're social beings and we need connection and we need attachment to figure out and to understand our self-worth, God says, this is the love that I have for you. This is the way how I see you. And I want to restore your attachment injuries from other relationships for you to see the love that I have for you. And God has many beautiful promises about his love to us. I really like Jeremiah 31 verse 3 that says, I have loved you with an everlasting love. And there's a very common one that we use a lot on weddings and like romantic relationships. We use it as a promise we make to others so that others make to us. But this is from God to us as well. And he says, I am patient with you. I am kind with you. I'm not proud with you. I don't want you to be dishonored or humiliated. I don't want you to only look at me without knowing that I love you. I don't get easily irritated or angry with you. I'm not happy about keeping a record of your wrongdoings. I don't delight on your evil, but I rejoice on your truth, which is I love you. And it would be beautiful if we accept the love that God has for us. That would be very healing and help us thrive. And in here, this is a format that I made based on 1 Corinthians 13. And it's a mix of God's love, but also our commitment to practice self-worth, to accept his love to us. So it says, the first example, so love, which is God, because God is love, is patient with me by. So how can we remind ourselves God's patience toward? In what things that we struggled, that growing up we felt like others were not patient to us? What things can we realize, but God is patient to me on these things? And then after identifying that, then you can say, then I will accept his patience to me. And I will be patient with myself by doing what? How can I practice patience towards myself? So this is a resource that I want to share with you if you're interested on exploring and processing yourself. If the spiritual part is not a thing for you, that's totally understandable too. And there are resources as well. But part of what we want to do first is to attend to counseling or to someone that we trust, to someone that we feel we can connect and process those injuries, process those things that we've been holding, because those are the foundation for thriving and healing in many areas. Do we want to grow? Yes. Do we want to be healthier? Yes. Do we want to look better? Yes. But we need to understand the motive for all those goals. And knowing and accepting that worth is a foundation for all the rest. So after this, we have some time for questions and thoughts. So I welcome any thought or question that you may have from what you have heard.
The video. Thank you, Laura, for your topic. I have a couple of questions here. I'm trying to start my video. Here we go. So thank you again for, on a short notice, being able to be with us today. Couple of questions that we have is, one is for sure, thank you for that form that you show at the end. We'll show in a moment your email so people can write to you. I know that I would like to have a copy of that, so you will receive my email. So when it comes to self-worth, probably I assume most of us, and by the way, there are some of the participants today from, at least one from Indonesia. And so we have an international group today. And others, I believe, is from Bangladesh or for the Philippines. I think I recognize the name. I'm not sure where that person is living, but I know it's from Bangladesh. So thank you, friends, for joining us. So what is the, especially if we look from a Christian background, I think probably most of us have that kind of background, maybe different religions. So what is different between self-worth, if I focus on that, and pride? So how do I know that I'm not, now that, I have so much self-worth, nobody can say anything to me, and, you better treat me well. So what is the balance there?
Mm-hmm. So pride and selfishness, they're a compensating behavior. They are based on external things, because if you look at it, I am proud based on others. Like I always have to compare myself to others. So I have to be proud in comparison to others or in relationship to others. So pride is still looking for that connection, because there cannot be pride if there's nobody to be pride with, or to be pride against, or in comparison with. So there's just ways to compensate, like ways to feel love through, and a lot of the pride is, like academic achievements, which academic achievements, they're not bad. The bad thing is when we think that our worth is based on our academic achievements. The way how our talents, right? The talents that we have. Is it bad to have talents? No, it's not bad. Is it bad to know how to sing, to know how to play, to know how to do certain things, to be artistic? That's not bad at all. But what is bad is to think that that's going to make us be more loved. And the reality is that many times we get more attention by it. But that attention is not a genuine love, is not genuine worth. And so the difference with the self-worth that we're talking here is that there is nothing that you can do to increase your worth, because you're already worthy. That's self-worth. You're valuable, you're special, you're important, you're loved. That's it. Pride is, I have to do this, I have to get there so that I feel valuable, special, and important.
Okay. So maybe the opposite side, if I am in a relationship with friends or, with a girlfriend, husband, wife. So, well, I have self-worth. This is who I am. You have to love me as I am. And this is it. This is what you get. So you have to accept me because that's my character. That's the other side. So you see what I'm saying? So what is the problem? Like,
right. So a lot of the times we're actually defensive because we feel that our worth is being attacked. So if you're fighting and you're saying, I am good, don't change me, don't do anything, it's because you feel like, oh, my worth is being attacked, so I need to protect it. But if I understand that what the person is saying is not to put me down, or that there's nothing that the person can do to bring my worth down, I can maybe hear what they're trying to say and try to grow in a relationship and understand that as well as I am worth it, the other person is also worth it. As well as I'm worth it and I should experience respect, I should also honor and respect the other person because they're worth it. And so worth is not pride, right? Where I'm like always defending and protecting myself, that nobody would say anything or want to change anything, because a lot of the times what happens is, and I like to relate it with kids because they're more explicit in some ways. But a lot of the times, kids feel that if they get in trouble, they're not loved. And parents many times make the mistake of telling kids, if you do that, I'm not going to love you as much.
Mm.
Or you don't love me if you're doing this thing. And so we are comparing love with worth. And so kids, when they tell them, you know, I have a client that anytime you tell her you want to correct her for anything, for like, oh, look, your pillow, it's not in the right place, just put it on the right place, she runs away, she gets upset, she shuts down. Why? Because she feels that we're telling her, you're not worth it. I'm not gonna love you if you don't do that. And that's what she learned. That's what it was taught to her. And so it's important for us to differentiate that worth is not pride. Worth doesn't mean that you're perfect. Worth means that you're loved. And that we need to grow, and we need to grow together. And that sometimes we do things wrong, but we still have this foundation where we deserve love and respect.
Okay. You know, as we talk, as you talk about the attachment, you know, things, how, you know, our parents treated us. Usually, you know, most of us grew up with our parents or caregivers. Two things come to mind. One is that it is painful to go back and to say, you know, this is what happened, and that brings me, you know, sadness that my father did that, or my mom. But also it brings guilt because, you know, we respect our parents or our grandmother or whoever took care of us. Mm-hmm. So if we do therapy or we do, you know, journaling, whatever, trying to see, you know, why I relate this way, or, you know, how do we deal with that guilt? Because it's like, you know, we want to heal ourselves without putting down our parents. Or then I stopped talking with my dad or my mom because what they did. So what is the balance there? How do you handle that? I assume in therapy.
Mm-hmm. Well, they're different factors, and we kind of mentioned, we touched on that one, which was about forgiveness. Mm-hmm. Right? Forgiveness to ourselves, forgiveness to others. And part of forgiveness is understanding that a lot of the times that people say or do something, they're not necessarily talking about me. They're doing it about themselves. And so we have parents that for them to feel worth it, they believe thinking that they had to provide financially. And so that's all they did. They focused on providing financially. But it didn't let the kids know that they were loved by them, by the father. And so it is important to understand my need, but also to understand where he came from. And it was not that he didn't see worth in myself, but it was more that that's what he knew and that's what he thought himself. And so when we talk about guilt and shame, many times it's something that we place in ourselves, but many times it's also something that other people place in ourselves. And we have to remember that it comes from a misunderstanding, and from it's injured people become people who injure others. And understanding those cycles and those backgrounds is sometimes helpful, because it's not always about me. It's also about them. It's not that I was not loved, it's that they didn't know how to show it better. It's not that I'm not worth it. It's that maybe they couldn't see it, but that doesn't make me not worth it. Mm-hmm. Does that answer your question? Yes.
And so I had another question. So as we listen to this topic and we start thinking, how do I know? I mean, we know, you know, being human beings, we all have had hurts in the past, and we bring things, we try to heal. But how do we know that there are issues because maybe we are in denial, just we don't want to, deal with having to go to therapy or do journaling because it's painful, and you have to be humble, and humility, and recognize things and forgive. So what are the symptoms or signs in our interpersonal relationship that may make us think, I'm having this issue, maybe there are things from the past. I don't know if I'm explaining myself. If I have a toothache, I know if I start having pain, I know there is a molar, probably I have decay. So what are the symptoms in our daily life that could tell us, Gerardo, maybe you should evaluate how you're feeling or your pain, or what are the things that might be?
Like I said, nobody has a perfect secure attachment. So I think we all carry something. We all have symptoms. But just, something that comes to mind with couples that I work with, they're partners or there's people that learn, and kids learn that showing their emotions is not safe. And so they become either very positive. And so sometimes it's people that is hard to connect because everything is okay. Everything is okay. Let's look at the positive side. We cannot acknowledge the pain. Or it also becomes people that are very closed off, very quiet. They focus a lot on work itself. They focus a lot on performing, but there's not a lot of the personal being there. But on the other side, it can also be people that are always caring about others. I have to do this and I have to do that. And it can be because they felt that they were seen and they were loved when they were doing things. Or it can also be like, I have to do stuff, otherwise I'm going to get in trouble. And so I work with some clients that they feel like I have to perform constantly. I have to do things right, because if I don't, I get really anxious. So that anxiety to do things perfect and to always be right and to make sure that nothing is going to be bad, because in a way they associate it with, if I don't do it right, then I'm going to get in trouble, even though you're not going to get in trouble, but that's something that you hold within yourself. And so there are many, many ways in which we can show symptoms that we have attachment injuries. And I think we all do.
Okay. Well, it has been certainly, it's a topic that at least to me is very interesting. And as you say, probably we all have things, and I know I do have, and work on those. But the good thing is there is hope, there is healing, especially I'm sure you have many stories as a therapist working, as we saw before, with trauma, grief, military members, victims of war, so a lot of trauma, but healing is possible. But there is also, I guess, like everything in life, it depends. We need to put our part and do our efforts, and learn to be vulnerable, at least with people who is safe, at least a therapist or somebody to help us. Well, I want to thank you. I think that has brought many good ideas, things for each of us to think about, pray about. Well, I want to thank you. I would like to share your email address. I appreciate that you allow us to do that. So friends, if you want to take a picture or write it, I know we will probably be good to get, at least I know I would like to get that form that you had to talk to analyze 1 Corinthians 13. And that's a topic for another time, maybe people that haven't heard in church, or people in the church, how it's difficult to dissociate that pain from God. So maybe that will be a topic for another time. But Laura, one more time, thank you for in a very short 24 hours notice. You were able to make the time to be with us. I know it has been a blessing for me. I'm sure it has been for others also. And we look forward to seeing you in October. We will have another topic. So friends, we will let you know with time what will be Laura's next topic. So thank you again for your time with us. And friends, we would like to take 2 more minutes to show you again. If you want to take a picture and make notes, mark your calendars. For the next 3 months, we have Dr. Binus. He's a psychiatrist, director of Beautiful Minds in Northern California. Actually, Laura is part of the staff there. He will be telling us about how to make friends with our stress. I think that will be very interesting and appropriate for the times we are living. And then Dr. Needley will come back to be with us again. He was in February with us, and he will be telling us what is the best nutrition for the brain, especially when it comes to the healing of depression and anxiety. And then Amanda Anguish, another licensed marriage and family therapist, will be telling us about the importance of our thoughts, saying goodbye when you have welcome anxiety and depression. So we have one more slide to again emphasize. Please take a picture, share with your friends. We are going to have this recording probably in a week or so in YouTube. Feel free to text me. That the number I gave you is my text number, my phone number. You have it there in the chat. If you would like to have the recording for Laura's presentation, I will be happy to share it. Probably give me a week or so, and I will be able to send it to you. So thank you again, friends, for being with us. Please share with others when the information for next topic. And I would like, as we did in the past, to close with a prayer. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for the meeting today. We thank you that we were able to still hold the meeting today. Thank you for Laura and her time and for what she has shared. You know, Lord, we all have wounds in this world, and we ask also for forgiveness as we have hurt others. We ask, Lord, that in this journey of healing, you will give us wisdom and humility, first to look for you, to seek for you, but also to seek maybe help if we need it, that we can start healing our wounds and we can start giving others love and peace as we can have that in our own hearts. I ask for Laura, for each of the participants today, be with them, their families, and we ask that we can get together again in a month. We ask this in Jesus' name, amen.
Yeah.
Friends, it was good having you. Thank you, Laura, again, and I wish you a blessed rest of the week. And we'll see you in April.